Hello, welcome back to Media Roast, where I'm going to ask and try to ask questions that the media is afraid to ask. Yeah, since I don't have like a big audience, I'm not worried about it. So here is my question of the day. So I was curious because I don't really see this in the media with the large numbers of illegal migrants in the USA, right? And the different cities are paying for hotel rooms, food costs, this and that, right? And I was like, okay, so are they actually allowed to access federal programs? Okay, all right. And so I looked it up, and this is on from Money Watch by Amy Peachy, and this was May 16, 2023. All right. Okay, so this is it's an old article, but it's not. Okay, so as I was reading it, I was like, well, can these people coming to the U.S. illegally, can they get a bunch of programs, right? And so apparently, and this is CBS, okay? So this is a very pro-leftist, anti-American news media. And it says here, unauthorized migrants, or those who haven't entered the U.S. through a legal pathway, such as receiving a work visa or gaining asylum or refugee status, aren't eligible for most federal aid programs according to NILC. Okay? That means they cannot receive food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, TANF, low-income home and energy assistance program, and other federal aid. Right? It says, though, they may qualify for emergency Medicaid for medical costs and the school meal programs available to all children regardless of immigration status. I get that. Now, I know, and I suspect a lot of people who are not here in the U.S. legally are using these different programs. Now, let me explain something. And I'm not perfect on this, but I have some knowledge of this. Under Bill Clinton, they changed the welfare system from a federal system to a state system with allocated quantities of money going to each state because the federal system was going overboard on the cost and always exceeding their budget on the amount for welfare. Now, so when they transferred it, and it went from the federal welfare system to the state level, that was TANF. Okay, right? So TANF basically is the state receiving a certain amount of money per state based off whatever their qualifications are or their costs are, right? And then once they exceed the TANF, that money is spent, it comes out of the coffers of the state taxes. Now, there's a couple different aspects to this. Okay? I mean, legally, if you want to say that anything up to the point of the money allocated by the government cannot be spent on illegal migrants. But legally, you could argue that any money allocated by the state after that point could be allocated to illegal migrants. Now, let's look at this from the point of view, because now you've gone to the separation from federal funds assigned that cannot be used to state funds allocated to the funding. Now, this is something really interesting because a lot of people aren't looking at this, right? And this is a cost to taxpayers $850 million annually due to migrants who cross the border without proper documentation, blah, blah, blah. And the biggest cost is the hospitals, okay? Because when you go in there, the hospitals have to treat you to a point. They got to draw some blood. They may have to get a urine sample. Actually, they do have to always get a urine sample. They have to try to figure out what's going on. They have to hire translator people. Whole 9 yards, right? So when you start looking at it, right, it kind of, it's a gray area. Because you can't really prove, let's say in Washington State, I'm an illegal family. I put in for food stamps and whatever else I can get, right? Okay? So states, of course, Washington State's very liberal. So, of course, they're just going to throw it at you. But if you're a state resident, they won't want to give you shit. But if you're not, you know, or if you're a guy, you're never going to get any food assistance. It's going to go to someone else because you're a guy and, you know, they don't care about guys. But, I mean, there's a gray line there with the TANF system that I don't think has been really crossed. You know, where does federal money end? Where does it begin? And where does state money come in? Because let's say it takes the state of Washington 6 months to burn through federal money. All right? And for that 6 months, they're giving benefits illegally to these migrants. Right? Let's look at this. And then they continue on to the next year till the fiscal year is over. So they've had 6 months that they've allocated money from the federal money, which is not legally allowed to do that, right? Then they go into the 6 months where they go into state money, where they legally are allowed to allocate state taxes to this. Now, here is the question. Where does the federal money start? Where does it end? And are they in the state actually going up and being like, this is where the state taxes start to pick in? Because then legally the state could say, we're going to give these migrants this, and that. Because now it's state tax money. Okay. So this is the question. And it's not even about how much taxes or jobs under the table. It has nothing to do with that. It's the use of the federal benefits versus the state additional benefits to that. Okay. Now, it's a real question because with a large number of illegal migrants, I don't say illegal migrants because they sure as hell aren't legal. So it makes them illegal. You have to consider the fact that A, they can't get work on the table. They can't really pay taxes. They're not paying into FICA. They're not paying the federal taxes. They're not paying anything else. State of Washington, they're trying, it's going to be probably gotten rid of pretty soon, to make it to where you pay extra money for basically, I think it's retirement or health care or something like that for elderly and poor people. Now, I'm not saying I'm rich, but, you know, they're just trying to lay more and more taxes in the state of Washington on everybody in every way. And they would lump into this group illegal migrants because it's state assets. Okay? All right? Now, I just wonder, you know, for people, you know, I just want to know, is where the money begins and ends. Okay? Now, for example, I'll give you, so let's look at the WIC program. WIC program is a federally approved program. It has federal funds allocated to that. Okay? Right? Do they take the money from the WIC program? Do they extend it out for the whole year? If so, that allocated money, they legally could not use that for illegal migrants and their families. Okay? But if the WIC program is running the whole year on federal money, but then the food stamp program is going 6 months on the federal money, you still have federal money that isn't spent. You see what I'm getting at here? So, judging where that federal money really goes, is it like an equal distribution on all the programs? Or is it like 1 year where the migrants would receive the benefits and still be taken from federal funds? If that makes sense, if my accounting brain is going off. So, so the question is now, if the state of Washington or any other state is giving all these benefits to illegal migrants. Like in Washington, you can go to college if you are illegal. Okay? You can take classes in English as a second language, right? ESLs. And other things. And that's on my dime as a taxpayer in Washington State, right? So if I go to college as a resident of Washington State, I have to pay full cost for tuition. But if I'm a legal migrant and I can get in this program before the money runs out, I get it for free. It kind of irks me a little bit because I wouldn't mind retraining into a better job, but I can't do it because I can't afford it. But if you're here illegally, they're going to get you into the college, get you trained in something, you know. And we haven't even gone major into the cost for health care. I mean, this is like, you know, they don't have health care. When they come in and rack a bill up for $5,000, the hospital absorbs that and it goes into the loss, or it's going to go into the cost for the normal people that come into the hospital. Because right now, with, you know, majority of people I've seen have Medicare, or they have the state health care for their child. So either way, it's costing a lot, and the hospitals are losing money. But it's a real question. And I am pretty sure most state governments would not audit their records to see where the money's going. Because if they had to audit their records and they had to come out with a report saying where the money was going, it would most likely, not assuming, most likely show that the majority of the money being spent on illegal migrants with federal benefits is illegal money and should not have been spent on them, which means they would have to cut them off, and you couldn't really prosecute the illegal migrant because state approved it. It would fall on the state level government to suck up the loss. But the fact is, if the federal government suspected, depending on who was in charge, that states were not using the funds properly, like in California when it came to Medicaid for illegal migrants, I think it's like $600 million or $700 million. The federal judge ordered them to pay back because they weren't supposed to use the money for illegal migrants. It's something that is just one of those things. It's just something that I would just bring up because, as a taxpayer, as a resident, you know, I don't have a problem with money being spent to help people, but people that came into the United States illegally, they don't deserve this because they have put nothing into the system. Zero. You know? That's like saying an illegal migrant who is 63 comes to America and he asks for Social Security. And I'm not saying he will. He gets Social Security at 65 and he's put nothing in the system. This is happening in Germany. You have people coming in who are older, they retire, and then they're getting into the German system for retirement and getting a minimum amount of money when they put no money into the German system. So the other question is that going to happen here? It's a very good question. But I don't really believe it's going to make a difference pretty soon because in the state of Washington, it's pretty much run by the Democrats. Whatever they want to do, socialism, this and that, easy on crime, whatever, it's going to roll downhill. The only avenue that we have at a state level, at local, is to try to elect people who are going to follow the rules. But at state level, we don't really have the information. And the state government's pretty slick about trying to hornswoggle the people into everything. And of course, Seattle's full of socialists. They don't care. Look at Seattle, look at Portland. They're shitholes. You know, they're socialist shitholes. But yeah, so that's the question. Where is the federal money going, and how much is being spent, and where, and how is it being spent? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that a good chunk of that money is not going to where it's supposed to be allocated. And if the state of Washington was caught in this, they would be forced to pay money back to the federal government, most likely. So it's a really good question, you know. But the media here doesn't want to talk about that because, you know, if you talk about illegal migrants, you're a racist, you know. But yeah, it's just something that I would like to bring up because it's a really interesting concept about this. So have a good one, and like and subscribe, and it's new channels. And if you want to hear about something, just throw a rock at me and let me know, and we can maybe do a video on it. So have a good one.